Hey everybody, this is Matt, and this is a review of the Kmise tenor guitar. It's been floating around on Amazon for a while. It looks like this, sort of like more of a ukulele kind of guitar. That's because it's made by ukulele people, right? And I wanted to do a video on this because I see a lot of people on like the tenor guitar forums and like Reddit or Facebook or something like that, asking, hey, what tenor guitar should I buy, or is this a good tenor guitar, or etc., etc., etc. And I see people talking about this one, so I wanted to make a video about it. However, I do really want to talk about tenor guitar scale length, and hopefully it's going to help you in like your buying decision, because that seems to be also a thing as well. So the first part of this video is sort of like my ruminations or thinking about scale length and tenor guitars and things in general. And the second part is the review of this thing, which is the Kmise. Sorry, my webcam's not that great. And so I'm going to put a timestamp at the bottom. If you want to go straight to the review, just click the timestamp. If you don't really care about tuning or, etc., 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 you might want to do that first. However, I think to understand why I bought this guitar, you need to understand my problems with the tenor guitar in general. Because I feel like it's a complicated instrument, at least in my tuning, was this jazz tuning, which is CGDA, because I play 20s jazz. So this part of the video is just, if you've never bought a tenor guitar before, or want to know something about them, or you're making the decision and you want to play it in CGDA tuning like I do, you might want to consider watching this part if you're interested anyway. If you're playing in DGBE or I would never play something like this in CGBD, like a plectrum banjo, then you probably, or GDA would be the other one, you could probably tune this one in. I wouldn't worry about it too much. You could probably switch to the next part of the video. However, I wanted to talk about tenor guitars in general, where they came from. And I've had one for about 10 years now, so I thought it'd be interesting for some people who are just getting into the instrument. To know something about it. So to really understand where the tenor guitar comes from, you really need to understand the tenor banjo, because the tenor guitar is directly related to the tenor banjo. And I'm primarily a tenor banjoist. That's what I play in my band. We play 20s jazz. This is why I use jazz tuning. And to really understand the tenor banjo, and you need to really start with the banjo in general. So this is like the first iteration of historically the first iteration of like a jazz banjo. And this is a plectrum banjo, so I think it's got like 25, 26 frets, maybe, I don't know. I don't really play it that much. 22 frets. It's about 25-inch scale. It's basically what you would have if you took a normal 5-string banjo and chopped the drone string off. So about like 1902, 1903, people were playing this one in were basically vaudeville shows that had come from minstrel shows, right? And the dance music was getting different. So this one's like just like a compromise instrument. It's really, they needed to do something, which was play with a pick, right? And play those quarter notes, the bop 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 kind of stuff that you hear on a lot of 20s jazz and ragtime. But they didn't have like an instrument to do this, so they just used what they had, which was one of these. And this is tuned basically CGBD, which is basically like the top 4 strings of a 5-string banjo with a dropped low string to C, and it's got like you can hear it. Probably peaking the mic with it. These things are loud, right? But that's your just generic C chord, and it's got a lot of very guitar-like sensibilities to the tuning. It's got the close notes that you would get in later jazz that you get from the 6-string guitar. And you'll see a lot of plectrum banjoists, and there are a lot of fantastic plectrum banjoists even today. I mean, like, this is a really sort of eclectic instrument. And they play, a lot of the jazz stuff especially is played up here. So like I'm at the 12th fret, and playing that C at the 12th fret. And this is where you get these little squeaky sort of like Dixieland-ish kind of things that you would do with this instrument. However, by like about 1910, like, ragtime was a thing, and these big ragtime dance bands were a thing. And this is where you get the development of the tenor banjo. And the tenor banjo is really an instrument that's designed to solve a problem that really doesn't exist anymore. And this is like directly related to the tenor guitar. So you went from this, which is 22 frets, 25-inch scale, And the first tenor banjos were something like I play. So my main tenor banjo is this one, which is a converted. Goldtones makes these. These are Irish banjos. But this is what you would have got in the first part of the 20th century with the tenor banjo, about like 1915, 1916. I think Vega was offering one of these in 1916 in a catalog. But it's 17 frets, about 19 3/4 inch scale. It's got an 11-inch pot on it. But here's the thing. It's tuned like a viola. So here's the crux of the problem I'm going to talk about with tenor guitars and scale length and things like that. And this is why I bought the Kmise guitar over my current tenor guitar, which is a Blue Ridge. But I play the 17 fret variant of the tenor, which is the first style of tenor. And it really is designed to solve two problems. First of all, you had a lot of mandolin players, because the mandolin and mandolin orchestras were really popular in the 1910s, late 1800s, 1910s. So you had a lot of mandolin players, and they wanted to play, jazzy sort of ragtimey music. So, and they don't want to learn the plectrum, which is that earlier banjo. So they start making these for people, and it's tuned into this. So, and it's got this really high sort of squeaky sound to it, and that's gonna come back to haunt us when we talk about the tenor guitar, right? And this is designed to solve a problem. You start to play with a lot of horns, and you need something that is going to get over those horns. I play 20s jazz with a band, and I am like killing myself on even this thing, which has a tone ring in it. It's a loud instrument. This is a loud instrument, and I'm barely able to chop it out, right? And this is the second point. It's basically what this thing is for, is to get up above horns and provide the chop in the background, because all of ragtime and 20s jazz and trad jazz has the chop in the background, and that's these constant, quarter notes, these, those things. And also it's a lot higher than the plectrum. If you were paying attention, that chord, that C chord I was playing on the plectrum, which is like at the 12th fret, it's like the octave C chord. The same one you could play, and the same exact chord, just slightly inverted, is here. I'm sorry, if I can get it right. It's a C chord, but I'm at the 4th fret, and I'm playing the same notes. So it's a lot more compact, it's higher, and it's squeakier. And this is what they needed. It was in direct response to this problem of having enough volume and getting over the horns, because the 20s music is dance music. You dance to ragtime, you dance to 20s jazz. If you don't hear the ta-ta-ta-ta-ta-ta in the background, you can't dance. It's really what holds the rhythm down for the entire ensemble. So this is the first iteration of the tenor banjo. I'm playing one without a resonator. It would be louder if it had a resonator. I'm probably going to put a resonator on. But you might ask, okay, why don't you play the bigger one? And if you don't know, there's a bigger tenor banjo. And the reason being is I just like the 17-inch scale. Not the 17-inch scale, the 17 fret ones, because of the smaller scale. This is a 19 fret. So this is what they went to in about like 1922 or something. By 1922, everybody was playing one of these, which is a 19 fret tenor banjo, same tuning, same CGDA, but it's just louder because of the 19th fret. Now, here's the thing, and here's my beef with the tenor guitar in general, and the beef with the Kmise, I guess the problem that Kmise was trying to solve. The problem with the tenor guitar is that you're taking a tuning, the tenor banjo, and by extension the tenor guitar, you're taking a tuning that is designed for viola. And if you don't know anything about classical string instrument, viola is like a 17-inch scale. We've just gone up to a 19 3/4 inch scale, and this one's at 23. So they call these on like the banjo forms, they call this the cheese grater. It's literally really tight. You could almost grate cheese on it. But see, the tightness is the point. The high tension and the high tension sound. Charles McNeil, the guy who wrote the tenor banjo books, calls it the snap. That's what it's for. They got the bigger ones by the 20s because they were playing in bigger and louder bands. And if you play any of the chords, it's really loud, and it's really high tension, and it's really got a lot of high energy in it. It's not a really nice instrument to play. It's not a good playing accompaniment instrument. It's really for getting above those horns and providing the backbeat not the backbeat, the beat for whatever dance music you're playing. So this is 23 inch, 19 fret. And this is sort of like the final form of the tenor banjo. The concert banjos like that you would see in the 20s, they had this form. Because honestly, if you cranked up the scale even more, that A string would snap. And indeed you play a lot of. I play a lot and I break some A strings because it's just so high tension. So that brings us to my problem with the tenor guitar. If you're in an instrument with 19 frets and about 22, 23 inch scale, and the tension is the point, because you need the tension for the volume, and you need the tension to provide that sort of high energy chug in the back of the dance music. It's designed to solve a problem that is starting to not exist, and that's the problem of volume. So in the 20s, in the early 20s, there was no amplification. There was also no electrical recording. You recorded directly into physically into a cone, and then it was written physically onto the record. By 1925, there'd been advances in electrical recording, so now microphones are a lot better, recording technology is a lot better. You can hear more instruments, things like that. So people start playing guitar, and they start going towards what we might call swing, with those sort of, those block chords and the swing chug that you have behind all the swing music. So what you have is a bunch of tenor banjo players who want to play guitar because they see people like Eddie Lang or some of these early guitar gods, and they're playing. By 1927, they're on the radio with guitars. They're like, oh man, we want to do that, but we don't want to reteach ourselves and learn to play the tenor guitar. Learn to play a six-string guitar. So this is where we get the tenor guitar. It's and this is the Blue Ridge. If you ever wondered what one of these sounded like. So I have one of the first run Blue Ridge tenors. And this is 4 strings. It's about 22 and 5/8 scale. And it's sort of like a guitar in a solution in search of a problem. So it's still got the high tension A string and the E string. This one's strung with 9, so it's a little bit lower tension. It's this labella. It's the labella set is what I string it with. But you'll notice I haven't clipped this string end off because I keep breaking it. So I'm going to argue from a standpoint, and this is really the argue about the Kmise guitar, that this is not a balanced instrument. And you can sort of argue that away with the tenor banjo because it's not designed to be balanced. This is designed to really throw that snap to the back of the room, right? But the tenor guitar is directly competing with the 6-string guitar, which is relatively even in volume, has a lot of really close chord voicings and things like that. But if I play my Blue Ridge, which is tuned in C, G, D, A, all my stuff is tuned in C, G, D, A because I play jazz. It's got a nice sweet sound, but it is not balanced. The reason being is that this A string is still really high tension compared to the rest of it. Even though this is the lightest string I could possibly put on it to compare to in the closest tension for all 4 strings I can get on it, it still overpowers the instrument, right? If I play anywhere up the neck, especially like if I'm playing the step chord, the A string, and it might not be might not be obvious over the webcam audio, it really totally dominates the sound of this instrument. That is all you hear whenever you play one of these. So my point is, and if you've made it this far in the video, I would not buy, if you want a balanced sound, if you're going to play by yourself, I would not buy one of these in 23-inch scale if you're going to play in jazz tuning, which is C, G, D, A. There is no way that you could possibly get this to be a balanced. If you really wanted this to be balanced, you'd have to probably go back to like 18-inch scale, like around a viola tuning, because the viola is a balanced instrument, and there's a direct relationship between the quality of the sound and the tension of the strings. And this is a really high tension, at least the A string on this thing is really high tension and overpowering. It's a little bit less overpowering on the 17 fret tenor banjo, the 19-inch scale. the tenor banjo I normally play here, which is the 17th fret one, it's less like that. The A is still there. It's still got the snap. It still sort of overpowers because that's the way of the way it works with the pot and the head and things like that. But the point is that it's more of a balanced instrument than the 23-inch scale ones, right? So I don't really like playing 23-inch tenor guitar in CGDA. It's not a good sound to me. That present, that really strident, you would call it, A string, is not really attractive. Now, I don't mind it with the tenor banjo because the banjo's got a different sound, et cetera, et cetera. So my point in buying the Kmise, is that I wanted a smaller scale tenor guitar, more like a balanced instrument that it should be, right? And not this overpowering A string on the guitar. So this will bring us to the Kmise, and this is sort of my review of the Kmise. And remember, if you're just tuning on this one, the reason I bought one of these is not because it's necessarily cheap, though that's not necessarily a problem. It's because I wanted a smaller scale tenor guitar, because I think the 23-inch scale tenor guitar, at least in jazz tuning, is it's just too much. The A string's too much. It overpowers the instrument. It's not a balanced instrument. It doesn't sound good by itself, right? So this is the Kmise tenor guitar. I got this one for $71 off of Amazon. It's basically ukulele construction, mahogany, and if you do the scale length on this, I've got a measuring tape here. Do the scale length on this one. Well, I'm getting where the bridge is. This is 21 and a half, so it's about 1.5 inches smaller than the Blue Ridge. And also the body size has something to contribute to it. This ukulele body size. By the way, it does come with a truss rod, if you were wondering. So that's like the bare minimum, I think, of any instrument I'll buy. It needs to have a truss rod. But it's got a nicer sound, right? I mean, like, it's a more balanced instrument. It doesn't have the volume of the Blue Ridge, but the A is not as overpowering. It's sweeter. It's actually not a bad sound. It sounds more like an instrument that it's itself. Where I think you should actually really put a tenor guitar is around like 18 inches or 19 inches scale, with maybe a bigger body than this one, and that's what would make a truly balanced instrument. I'm not sure if I'm going to get one. I don't think if anybody makes one like that. Also, you could the other thing you could do is do fan frets. I've been thinking about trying to get a fan fret banjo, so the A string is the scale on the A string is like a lot smaller than the scale on the bottom string. Not sure if I've seen like 1 or 2 people do that. Might be an option for the tenor guitar in the future to make it a more balanced instrument. However, I am sending this thing back, right? So I got to keep remember this is a review. So this thing works as an instrument. The construction is not terrible for $71. It holds the tune. I feel like it's probably going to break because the tension on the A string is so high. I keep saying that, but this is the reality of these instruments. And it's got a nice sweet sound to it. However, there are a number of problems that I would say. Spend the extra $100 if you want a scale length like this. Get the I think it's Kala is the ukulele maker who makes one like this. That's probably better. I'm going to order it. I'm going to try to review it. And the reason why is this thing has a couple of notable problems. First of all, the scale at the nut or the width of the nut is way too wide. It's like a ukulele width, right? So if I measure this thing, and I haven't measured it yet, I just know it's too wide. And if I pull out this is oh man, it's like 1 5/8. Sorry if you're. Let me see. Now this thing doesn't. Sorry, it doesn't have millimeters on it. I really use metric, but this is how everybody does it in the States. So it's 1 5/8, and it's really wide. It feels really wide when you play it. If I take the tenor banjo out, which is the one I play all the time, or every day, if I measure the scale of the nut, it's about an inch. It's about 1 inch. Maybe a little bit more than 1 inch. 1 1/4 almost. So, you know, it's just way wide. It feels like the Kmise feels really wide, and as a consequence, it's actually harder to play. I have a lot easier time playing my Blue Ridge, which is probably about 1.5. Maybe I could measure it right now. If anybody really wants to know, you can ask me. But it's harder to play stuff. I feel like this tuning the nut is really wide. So if you get some of these closer jazz chords, like that diminished right there, is almost impossible to play. It would be really hard for me to play it at speed, just because it's just awkward with this with this construction of this thing. The other problem is when I got it out of the box. I mean, you can sort of see it. I don't know. The action is really high. It's almost a half an inch in some places, maybe like 3/8, something like that, and it just really makes chording up here. I can almost not even play it, right? So that's the other thing, and you've got to do a lot of work to get that action down. But the real killer is the intonation. I've seen people talk about these things with the Kmise or Kmise. The intonation is really bad, especially on the bottom C string. So it's almost a half a step sharp, and I can't fix that without pulling out the luthier tools, and I'm not sure even if I have the skill to fix that. So if you want something you can actually play, don't buy this, especially for CGDA. This one's going back. It's just not playable as an instrument. I'm going to try to review the Kala. Now, I don't know if and other people on the forums have said if you play DGBE or GDAE, the intonation is probably a little bit better because it's lower and you won't see that intonation effect. So it might bring you into line with where you actually want to be if you play it at a lower tuning. But for jazz tuning, I wouldn't bother. Same thing with the Blue Ridge. If you're looking at, and this is just like with the tenor guitar in general, if you're looking to buy a tenor guitar, and you want it to be balanced and you don't want to hear A string all the time, don't buy a Blue Ridge. I love my Blue Ridge. It is a fantastic guitar. It's a well-built guitar. It's probably the best construction I've had of any import instrument. Still, it's just not fun to play. It grates. Like that A just grates. And I'm going to experiment with tuning it in reentrant. I'm going to make another video about reentrant. But now that I'm having to play it more because we're playing these transitional songs, not the deal. 22 and 5/8 is too long for a guitar tuned CGDA. However, if you play DGBE or GDAE, or even I've actually tried this thing in CGBD, which is plectrum tuning, it really sounds nice. I've tried this in GDAE, and also I don't play DGBE because I like fifths. But like the lower registers tuning stuff sounds really nice on this guitar. It's a good guitar for that. And I would imagine that like the Recording King or the Recording King, or what's the other one? The Ibanez, that are around $200, $300. They're probably also pretty good, right? I would, if you're going to play in DGBE or GDAE, or even maybe CGBD, because nobody makes a long enough plectrum guitar. I've never seen one out of the 20s or 30s. This would be a really good guitar, and you'll probably actually see this one out for sale. But if you're going to play, if the Kmise, and we'll return to the Kmise. If you're going to play this, if this is going to be your first tenor guitar in whatever tuning you're, wouldn't do it. It's just not a playable instrument. You're going to do yourself a disservice learning to play on this, because the technical, unless you're a luthier, if you because you'd spend $100, $200 to fix the issues on this for a luthier. If you can do the work yourself, it might be worth it. Otherwise, not so much worth it. Not a good instrument, except, I mean, it does have really nice sweet sound, even though it's out of tune. See, I'm really worried about the A string. But if you play like a lot of the Irish stuff, I mean, it's got a nice sound to it, but also it's really hard to play the Irish music because of the wide nut scale. So anyway, that's it. I would avoid these things. Maybe they'll put out a better one. Get the Kala if you're interested in this scale. That's my next buy because of the scale length. Or try to find a used Ibanez or a Blue Ridge, or even a Blue Ridge or a Recording King, and just spend the extra money, man. It's going to be much more worth it if you do that. Anyway, cheers. You can always ask me any questions on the forums if you see me, if you have any questions about these instruments. Thanks.